Hi, this is John with Estimator for SketchUp. As a custom home builder and designer, I often get asked, well, how much does the third bay of a garage cost to add, or how much would it save? And I used to use a rule of thumb of around $10,000 to $15,000 per bay, just from experience years ago. But what I did is I took a job recently where we were doing some severe cost cutting to try to fit the budget. So I literally just took a slice, a 12-foot slice out of the garage. It was a 3-car garage before, and so this is essentially a 12 by 24, sort of a typical section of a garage with a garage door and a window in the back, and I trimmed mine out. So this is completely done, and so I'll just kind of walk you through it and so show how I was able to show the people how much it would save. So I've got this as the completed section, but we'll start out with the slab prep, just the foundation. In this case, I just used a typical concrete stem wall on a footing. You can see the rebar that's in there. So there's horizontal runs of rebar in both the stem wall and in the footing. And in the stem wall, if I was to, say, for example, cut off that little concrete wall, you can see I've got vertical rebar in there as well. And all the rebar was modeled using Profile Builder. And so it's accumulating the links as I go inside of Estimator. So very simple way to getting your good quantities in there, and then you just divide by 20 for how many sticks of rebar. So and we'll show you that in a second. So there's our footings, our stem wall, anchor bolts, our sub-foundation gravel, and I put in a little bit for excavation in there for each. So we could quickly pick just this foundation. If I ran a report on that, you see we've got our basement gravel or sub gravel and some excavation time in there, footings both per foot for how much I paid anyways for labor, and then the footing concrete, same for the stem wall, and I paid per stick for rebar installation, and here's all the rebar, and then the anchor bolts. So we're starting to grow this as we go up. Got our slab in there, and in this case I put slabs on layers in Estimator, so you can see I'm getting a bunch of stuff out of that one piece of geometry. I'm using the cubic yards for how many cubic yards of concrete, using the square feet for the finishing labor, using the square feet for the termite treatment that I pay for, using the square feet divided by 1600 for 16 by 100 foot rolls of poly, and forming the slabs. I pay per square foot for that. So that one piece of geometry yields a lot of information. Framing, I use my Framer for SketchUp plugin. So these are some 2x6 walls with treated plates at the bottom and headers that are specified. So if I select these two walls, you could see that we are able to report out quickly, house wrap, the header material, the sheathing, the treated plates, the studs, and the top plates, and so forth. And the trusses, I got a price per unit on these trusses. So those trusses, if I look at the components, these are T2s that are $85 each. So we select them all, and there's almost $600 in trusses. Then we put the sheathing on the roof, and of course we have our roofing itself, the shingles, and some ridge vent up there. So if I was to focus on that roof, you can see I'm able to report out the trusses themselves and how much I'm paying the roofer per square for material and for labor. And we've got some ridge vent and some drip edge in there. And then the next thing I do is I put the exterior finishes on. So in this case, I've got some stone down here that I pay per square foot. And I put that on I used my materials for that one. So I'm using the quantity, the square footage of this mountain mist stone that I pay $10 a square foot for. Siding, I can report that out in same case. I'm using a material that's behind that siding, that lap siding, and that's showing how many pieces of hardy, or excuse me, the smart lap siding. My trim, I use Profile Builder once again to do all these individual pieces of trim. I've got 1x8 fascia, I've got the soffit material, I've got a 5/4 by 6 frieze board, band board, 5/4 by 4 trim. So when I use the layers there, you can see all of these layers have different quantities. So I've got my 5/4 by 4, 3 pieces, 5/4 by 6, 1x8 soffit, or fascia. So I group all those. They're on their own layers, but they're grouped onto my exterior trim layers, so I can cut them easily off and on just with a flick of a little layer here. So I could cut off my exterior trim. Okay. So then we'd obviously move inside. We've got wall insulation. In this case, I'm using a blown cellulose in there, and I'm using that material for the cellulose, and so it's only $50 in that wall. After I've insulated the walls, I've got my drywall walls and ceilings, and what Estimator is doing is taking the square footage and divided by 48 for how many 4x8 or 4x12 sheets of drywall. Of course, we'd blow the insulation into the attic, so I've got a price in there for that. Or interior trim, we've got these door bucks that go on for the garage doors, which are 2x6s, and we've got our baseboard in there. We've got some some 1x4 side and bottom casing and a 1x6 top, 1x6 base. And again, all that's done in a group of grouped layers. So if I was to look at the 1x6, I got 2 pieces of that. 1x4, I need 2 pieces of that. So that's how that's done. And then the garage door itself is a component. So if I was to click on that and look at my components, it's a $2,000 budget for that door and opener. And then the whole thing, when we select everything that we've got in there, we've got almost $11,000, but we've got some quotes in there. We got a quote from my electrician for how much to allow for that bay. And then that was $400 there, and interior paint, and then the carpentry quote, $2,400. So what I do now is include the quotes, but I also include a margin, and you can see that we're up to almost $17,000 for this bay. So a little bit of inflation, I guess, or price increases, and that comes out to being about $60 a square foot, roughly. So there you go. That's how much a bay of a garage, on average, would cost in today's market, anyways, in my market. So hope you enjoy watching. Thanks.